Well, I hate to tell you that I was right, folks, but I know the left better than what they probably know themselves. They are very, very predictable. And usually I can tell you exactly what the radical left's going to do even before they think about doing it. And that's exactly what happened on Friday's Revealed report, even before I heard the headlines from the radical left drive-by media. I told you exactly what they were going to do. I told you that they're going to flip the script. They're going to try to change the narrative and try to make you believe that President Donald Trump is the reason why these two Army National Guards were shot. And one at the age of 20 was killed very tragically. And our prayers are with the family, the friends, and those that have been grievously affected by this hideous act. Now they're trying to say that it's President Trump's fault for them being shot. I said that this would take place on Friday's Revealed report. I'm going to play that clip so you can see that. And then I'm going to give you the clip from MSNBC so you see that I was exactly right in what I predicted. Now, the radical left is going to try to paint the picture. Well, this person did that because of these National Guards down there in Washington, D.C. See, it's Trump's fault. Well, the crime rate dropped dramatically instantly when the Army National Guard was issued there. It's not Trump's fault. And so the radical left likes to flip the script on the president of the United States and that likes to think that we're dumb enough and gullible enough to believe that. So that is what I said on Friday. Now let me play the MSNBC clip so that you can see that I can tell you exactly what they're going to do before they even do it. I mean, they are just robotic to their agenda and their narrative. They don't really care about facts. They don't really care about truth. It's all about their Trump derangement syndrome. So here's MSNBC for you.
You know, there's so much controversy happening in the United States right now with ICE, who are also wearing uniforms and wearing masks. And so there's, you don't know, people walking around with uniforms in an American city. There are some Americans that might object to that. And so apparently this shooting has.
See, I told you exactly. They're going to say that this is Trump's fault because he put the Army National Guard there and he has ICE agents walking around with masks. So, you know, there's a lot of people that don't like that. And so you can expect that they would probably get shot. This is the radical left for you. This is the thinking process. They have Trump derangement syndrome. Now, I told you that this happened because of the Afghanistan debacle, which then led to a migration debacle by the radical left administration, Lion Biden and Calamity Kamala Harris. And then I also told you on Friday that they're going to do the political correctness game. They're going to skip past the grieving over the loss of the Army National Guard, and then they're going to try to talk about Islamophobia, and they're going to try to make sure that people are protected from Islamophobia, which I told you I'm tired of that. I'm tired of them passing by the grieving Americans that lost two Army National Guardsmen, or at least one, the other one potentially. They're going to skip past all of that, and then they're going to play their dumb political correctness game and worry about Islamophobia. I told you that on Friday, and then I'm going to show you exactly how they proved me to be right again. Here's from Friday. And I know that there's going to be the political correctness game where people are now going to spend all their time worrying about Islamophobia. I'm tired of that. I'm sick of all of that. They would rather spend more time defending people from Islamic phobia than trying to defend Christians in the United States of America. They're more worried about political correctness than trying to keep the American people safe. So the knowledge from, like Rush Limbaugh would say, knowledge on loan from God. But here, another thing, in between my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, like Rush would say, here is from PBS, proving exactly what I said would happen on Friday. I mean, we can tell you exactly what they're going to do even before they think about doing it. Refugee groups worry about backlash after National Guard shooting. People who work with refugees are worried that those who fled dangerous situations to start again in America will face backlash after authorities say an Afghan national shot two National Guard soldiers this week, killing one of them. Many Afghans living in the U.S. are afraid to leave their houses, fearing they'll be swept up by immigration officials or attacked with hate speech, said Sean Van Diver, president of San Diego-based hashtag Afghan evac, a group that helps resettle Afghans who assisted the U.S. during the two-decade war, end quote. Well, first of all, this problem should have never took place because We find that there was an Afghanistan debacle. President Lion Biden pulled our troops out in the most hideous, dumbest way possible. And then all of a sudden just rushed a bunch of Afghan national born people right into these planes and flew them all over here with very, very little vetting process that took place. There was absolutely no vetting process that took place. We just rushed them right into our country, not even trying to be concerned whether they were going to assimilate to the founding principles of America. Now, I played this on Friday, and I'm going to play it again just to remind you of what it was like back then. And we can see the spin and the lies when they tried to promise us, oh, yeah, they're being vetted. But here you go.
I can absolutely assure you that no one is coming into the United States of America who has not been through a thorough screening and background check process.
We are not conducting in-person full refugee interviews of 100% of the individuals.
What percentage are you conducting?
I don't have that information.
Wait. What number of the more than 60,000 brought to the country, what number have received an in-person interview before they came to the country?
When you're speaking of a full refugee-like interview, I don't have that data.
And then Lindsey Graham, we played the clip where Lindsey Graham was grilling him, and here's Andrew
Are
Olson.
you telling this committee under oath that 99% of the people who got on these planes in Afghanistan were vetted by our government before they got on that plane?
I want to be very clear because precision...
Because you're not.
No. Senator, if I may, you are asking me about planes from transit countries, the third countries...
I'm talking about people who got on the plane in Kabul airport.
No, I can't speak to that.
No, they couldn't speak to that. They cannot speak to that because there was no proper vetting process. And this is the radical left. They don't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, they don't have a problem with open borders. They do not have a problem with migration without assimilation because they hate the United States of America. I told you this. I'm going to prove it here in a bit with Jasmine Crackpot Crockett and her statements. And it just goes to prove even more of what I've been telling you over and over again. I sound like a broken record because I can tell you the radical left, I can tell you their playbook, their agenda, it's all the same. And they take their marching orders and they're willing to put aside their differences for the collective party. They're willing to even sacrifice the American people to push their collective agenda. It's Marxism rebranded, just blended with fascism nowadays. But I told you that they don't have a problem with migration without assimilation because they hate the United States of America. These were the ones that wanted to replace Juneteenth they wanted to replace Independence Day for Juneteenth. They want to replace Columbus Day for Indigenous People Day. They wanted to replace the U.S. flag for the Pride Progress flag. Their allegiance is not to the founding principles of the United States of America because they hate the founding principles of the United States of America, and primarily because they hate the idea of God. They hate the idea that people believe that they receive their inalienable rights as an individual from God and not from government. They want to be your God. They want to control you from cradle to grave, and they want to make you believe that they can take care of you from cradle to grave. If you just elect them, give them enough power, let them redistribute your wealth, then they can take care of all the problems. They'll make sure they end world hunger, every tsunami, hurricane, tornado. They'll end all of that. All you have to do is vote blue, let them tax you to death, redistribute your wealth, and they'll take care of you. And they want you to serve them as they are your God. This is why they hate Christianity. This is why Vladimir Lenin did. This is why Joseph Stalin did. This is why Mao Zedong did. They hate Christianity. They hate the idea of God because people then have convictions and won't bow down as minions to the government and say, oh, yes, we will bow to you, almighty government. Now, J.D. Vance said this was coming, as I did too. I remember back when this was just an audio podcast, I was just kind of ranting and raving on air because we lost 13 troops, which was the immediate ramifications. But I said there's going to come long-term ramifications as well. I said you're going to incentivize our geopolitical threats to think that we're weak and soft. And then we've seen it. Vladimir Putin invaded Russia. Also, I said that you cannot bring that many immigrants into this country without a proper vetting process, not knowing if they even like the United States of America, because then there's going to be people that are going to try to attack our country. And you see, that's what took place over the Thanksgiving break as this Afghan national shot these two Army National Guardsmen. And I said that this is what's going to happen. We're bringing people in who doesn't believe in what we believe in. They don't believe in the founding principles of America. And I'll talk more about that here momentarily, but I want to play to you from J.D. Vance. Anybody remember I Don't Care, Margaret? Which we all made memes out of it. But let's go back and be reminded of what J.D. Vance was actually saying in that interview.
1,000 people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand
concern
by it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that
So
we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These
It's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
So this is one of the reasons why I really started supporting J.D. Vance, was really on the basis of that. That was one of the first moments when I was like, wow, J.D. Vance is absolutely correct. And he was willing to say it, even though today you're not supposed to say that, because they're saying you're not being politically correct and you're going to drum up Islamophobia and all these other things. And I said their allegiance is not to the U.S. citizens. They have a problem with President Trump trying to crack down on the narco drugs that are coming in from Venezuela. They had a problem with them closing the border. They have a problem with him beginning to take illegal migrants and get them out of our country. Some of them even being criminals, like the Maryland man. They have a problem with the crackdown on lawlessness and crime and the out of order that nature that is taking place in some of our city streets like Portland and Chicago. I said that they had no problem with Afghan nationals coming over here, even if they don't believe in the principles of the United States of America. They have no problem with rushing people from every other country right into our nation, doing very little vetting process. They don't care if they like the U.S. because the radical left doesn't like the U.S. They don't like the principles of the United States of America. They don't like the principles of the West. They want to rewrite the very founding principles into their Marxist fascistic ideology. And so we find that J.D. Vance was willing to slash through all the political correctness and say, look, first of all, they weren't vetted right. You can see again that the drive-by mainstream media was lying to the American people. They were lying right in that interview, right to J.D. Vance and the American people, trying to say that they were vetted when we knew very well that they were not vetted. We knew that the lying Biden administration, Alejandro Mayorkas and all of them, Anthony Blinken, was lying through their teeth, which is the trademark of the radical left. The radical left is the exact same as the radical jihadist Islamists in this idea where they can practice lying to people because they believe we're just infidels anyways. And so they're lying to promote their cause and their purpose. For the Islamists, it's Sharia law. For the radical left, it's their Marxist fascistic ideology where you begin to denounce God and you make them your God. This is the radical left. This is how they operate. This is the principles of them. J.D. Vance was absolutely correct. Now, she was worried about us claiming that he was radicalized before he got here. And you find that J.D. Vance at that time said, I don't care, Margaret, which became the meme because he said, it doesn't matter to me whether he was radicalized after he got here or before he got here. We don't want people like that in our country because it's unsafe to the U.S. citizens. Now we can see that this one that shot these two Army National Guards was actually apparently radicalized after he got here. He was working with the CIA. He was working with our military, and he became radicalized after he got here on the basis because he was traveling back to Afghanistan, and they were helping radicalize him while he was here. And then he turned his attack on these two National Guardsmen, one being a lady. And so we don't care whether they become radicalized before or afterwards. We don't want people in our country that doesn't like our nation and wants to do harm to us. This is perfectly reasonable. There's no other country that would allow these things to take place except for Europe, and we can see the mess that they're in. Why would we follow the same path? Why would we go down the same road? Why would we allow that mess inside of our nation? But of course, by saying that, that means we're white supremacists. That means we're the KKK 2.0. We're the Gestapo. We're Nazi Germany. It's radical nonsense. And we're tired of all the labeling that means absolutely nothing. You have drowned the words out till they have no meaning anymore. J.D. Vance at that time was absolutely right. And we can see that now as we've seen this hideous, vicious attack on our military, one man and one lady. And this 20-year-old that's now dead. And I grieve for the loss there. And I'm praying for the family and the friends that were affected by it. And it was an attack on our nation as well. And so you can see that I said on Friday, I didn't bring the clip, I wish I did, but on Friday, I said the concern is they let these Afghan nationals come in and they let them travel back and travel here. And now they're becoming radicalized, some of them. And now we've seen in Texas where there was one on the same Afghani refugee program that actually was planning out the bombing in Fort Worth, Texas. Thank God it didn't happen. He didn't get a chance to go through with it. And so this happened because of the Afghanistan removal debacle and then an immigration debacle that took place. And now we're supposed to worry about Israel having dual citizenship when they weren't worried about these Afghan nationals going right back and then coming back here. You see, this whole thing is to look in my right hand so you don't see what's happening in my left hand. It's just optics. And they're always trying to demonize Israel when it's not the Jews that are committing these terrorist attacks. Now, I'm sure somebody is going to go out there and push their conspiratorial grip and try to say, oh, it was the Jews that made it into a false flag situation. So Trump would end up going and pushing and shoving them out of our country. Which Trump is not just doing that. What Trump is doing is he's shutting down migration from third world countries, which he should right now, and doing a strong vetting process on those that are here to make sure the U.S. citizens are safe. The radical left does not care about your safety, and yet they paint themselves as the ones that do care about your safety. They are upset with Trump because he blew up Venezuelan drug cartel boats after he shut down the border, and now there's a net zero migration. Many more are leaving than coming in, so they have to take their drugs on boats, and he wants to eliminate that threat so that they know you don't get away with that. You are not bringing it here into the U.S. You're not bringing your gangs into the U.S., and yet you find the seditious 6 congressional Democrats that are going to try to tell the military that you can refuse illegal orders, even though they won't tell you what illegal orders Trump is giving, because Trump has never given an illegal order, and they're trying to commit sedition and turn the military into rebels against the commander in chief. And then I'll take it even further. It's not even just that bad. The worst case of that is actually what they're doing is they're painting the picture that if the military carries out the orders of the commander in chief, then they're the villain as well. You know, they're just a brown shirt in Hitler's brigade. And so what you find is it doesn't just try to divide the military from the commander in chief. It tries to divide the citizens from the military. It tries to make U.S. citizens demonize the military and say they're just the brown shirts that is working for Hitler. That's why it's seditious. And that's why it's very, very dangerous. And that's why there should be accountability. On top of that, you find in North Carolina and other states, they're putting up these billboards right around where there's military bases and trying to say, this is not what we signed up for, and letting people go to websites that is being used to try to turn people against the military or the military against the commander in chief. It is a hideous, hideous thing that is taking place, and it is seditious. And Mark Kelly should be court-martialed, and he should come up before trial, and there should be some level of ramifications because of it. They need to be held to accountability so they do not continue to commit these acts, because what the radical left is actually trying to do is a color revolution. It is a coup that is trying to take place against the commander-in-chief because of their Trump derangement syndrome. See, they hate the fact that he became the president of the United States. This outsider became the president of the United States, not the anointed one, Hillary Clinton, after the Messiah, Obama. And he was the hand grenade that exposed all the radical globalized agenda that they have. So they want to do everything they can to eliminate him. And they're relentless. That's one thing you can say about the radical left is they're very, very hard workers. They will not stop working at it. This is a coup. This is and they want to talk about the worst day, the darkest day in U.S. history, January 6th, which was just a way for them to try to clamp down on conservatives, try to get rid of President Trump altogether, try to take him off the ballots, and try to demonize us who are Make America Great Again believers. And so it's the left trying to do exactly what they claim the right is trying to do. They are trying to do a coup d'etat. They are trying to go and undo a duly elected president, or at least turn the Americans away from him. They've been trying to do it ever since he came down that escalator. They've been trying to take him through the Russian collusion hoax. They've been trying to impeach him on anything they can. They are liars. They are deceivers, and their allegiance is not to the U.S. citizen. They don't care about the U.S. citizen. They care about their agenda. They don't care about your safety. They care about their ideology. That's what they live for, and that's what they're willing to die for. And J.D. Vance was absolutely correct. I sound like a broken record telling you that they don't like the principles of the West. They take history by sound bites to try to paint the narrative that America was built on white Christian nationalism. We were built on bigotry and white supremacy so that they can undermine the very principles of our nation. And here's Jasmine Crackpot Crockett playing right into that narrative to try to paint the picture that we should not be deporting these illegal immigrants, and we should not be deporting any of these Afghanis. We should be deporting white supremacists. And here is Jasmine Crackpot Crockett, you know, the most intelligent Democrat there is, which, by the way, might be one of their leaders of the pack.
Because again, if you want to talk about the people that shouldn't be in this country, you probably need to look in the mirror. Because the last time I checked, the Native Americans who some of ICE have been rounding up, or the Puerto Ricans who are absolutely Americans, listen, the only people that came and colonized this place are your ancestors.
And so what she's trying to paint the picture is Trump is a white supremacist. We were built on bigotry. We were built on white supremacy. We were built on white Christian nationalism. And so, and matter of fact, you even have the one Joy Reid, you know, the other super intelligent one of the drive-by media. You have Joy Reid out there trying to say that Erica Kirk and J.D. Vance, they're going to get together because J.D. Vance has to get rid of Usha Vance because she's brown skin. And that goes against their white supremacy idea. It goes against our white Christian nationalism. He can't be married to that Hindu. Oh, no. I mean, these people are radically insane. And it's not true. First of all, the reason why we ended slavery, the reason why we ended segregation is because the founding principles of the United States of America. They didn't just wake up one day, Abraham Lincoln wanting to fight the Civil War. This was an ongoing, escalating battle ever since the founding of our nation. It was Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and General George Washington at the time that was writing the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams, that was writing the Declaration of Independence in a way that would also try to stick their dagger right into the southern colonies that were racist, South Carolina and Georgia at that time. No disrespect to them today, great states, but at the time it was them that wanted to keep the slaves, and so they knew that they're going up against Great Britain. And it was Benjamin Franklin that said, if we don't hang together, we'll most certainly hang separate. So that's when they made the 3-5 compromise. It wasn't because they wanted to, but then they ended the Atlantic slave trade in 1807 or 1808 later because of this compromise that they did. They didn't want to do that. They were faced with hard decisions. And us who doesn't believe in abortion are faced with the hard decisions today. In 50 years from now, they could look back at our generation and say, can you believe that they mass genocide all the unborn babies? What kind of savages were they? We didn't believe in that, but we have to politically and legally fight that out, just like they did back then. But they want to try to flip the script that America is the most evil country, and they disregard the fact that there's some countries and Islamic countries that still practicing slavery today. They're not out there trying to get those slaves free. No, no. It's about tearing down the West. It's about tearing down the United States of America. And the reason why they also call it white Christian nationalism is so that they can tear down Christianity at its purest form, while yet sometimes wearing the mask of calling themselves Christians. So you got Jasmine Crackpot Crockett trying to say that America was built on bigotry. Trump, it's your ancestors. And if we're going to deport anybody, we should be deporting you and the white supremacists. And what she's really saying is that she would love to deport the conservatives. She would love to deport the MAGA, the Make America Great Again people. She would love nothing more than to get rid of us that are grassroots Republican conservatives. And this really shows the nature of the radical left. They absolutely despise us. They absolutely hate us. It is the left that promotes lawlessness, rebellion, and violence. And not only that, they celebrate it. We see that they were disappointed when Trump's assassination attempt failed. They celebrated the very assassination of Charlie Kirk, and some of the left even blamed Charlie for his own assassination. And so I say all this to tell you that the radical left, they despise everybody that doesn't believe in what they believe in, that doesn't promote their ideology. They despise us, and they would love nothing more. This was the ones that wanted to shutter the doors of our churches and close down our middle-class businesses. They would love nothing more than to round us up and deport us, while they try to say that Trump is wrong in everything he's doing. And Trump is just simply trying to make America safe, because we are at threat of terrorist attacks in our nation because of the wide open borders that took place. This would have never taken place if we didn't just rush people in here and allow them to migrate without assimilating to the founding principles of the United States of America. Jasmine Crackpot Crockett is really showing the nature of the radical left. They absolutely hate us. They would love nothing more than for us to be eradicated off the face of the earth. And as a matter of fact, this MSNBC reporter who talked about how it's no surprise that these National Guards got shot because of Trump, they're also demonizing the National Guards. Think about it for a moment. They're saying the National Guards really brought this upon themselves by carrying out the orders of President Trump. They will disrespect our military. They will disrespect any person that doesn't believe in what they believe in. They will trample on your rights. And let me remind you that the party that doesn't care about the right of the life of the unborn is a party that will trample on every single one of your rights. And yet these folks they're sick. They're sick people. However, if you're President Trump, you have another word for them. It's President Trump that came out and said that Tim Walz, because of the corruption in his state and because of all these Afghan migrants coming in here without proper vetting and the Somalians coming in here without proper vetting, Trump began to drop the R word. In case you're wondering what the R word is, the word's retarded. He said the word retarded. He called Tim Walz retarded. And of course, Tim Walz got his feelings hurt, even though Tim Walz talked about, the death of Trump and all of that, and has no remorse of anything that happens to Trump. And talked about violence towards Trump. But yet Tim Walz got his feelings hurt because he was called retarded by President Trump. Now, there are some that doesn't like the fact that the President of the United States used the R word. I find, I grew up in the 90s where you could say a lot of things and not many people got offended all the time, and we had a lot of fun. And we joked around, so it doesn't offend me as much. As a matter of fact, I figured that Trump's not only trying to make America great again, he's trying to make the R word great again as well. And so, but they came out and said the president shouldn't be talking this way. Folks, you got to understand what he was doing. Trump used this word strategically. You know why? Because if you would have read the Truth Social post without the R word, you would have just read through it in this boring post. I mean, it would have never caught your attention. But because Trump called Tim Walz retarded, people began to read what he was actually saying. It brought a lot of attention to his Truth Social post. Trump uses these words strategically. That's why he did it. And then he doubled down on it because it keeps people giving him free publicity and actually hearing what he has to say. So Trump is not just doing it as an ignorant barbarian man. He's actually using it strategically because he knows the news media is going to pass by in the matter of just a couple of weeks and there'll be another story. But at least he got the attention of what he needed and brought attention to Tim Walz, who now is probably going to be under investigations in that, and properly so. So I think it was probably clever. You can say that you didn't like him using the word. You can say the president of the United States probably shouldn't have used it. And we can probably agree to those things, but it was strategically used and it actually worked for his cause. He wanted people to see what was taking place with Tim Walz, and he wanted to see the problem with the Somalian migration into our country, as well as the Afghani migration into our country without assimilation to the founding principles. Now, Trump is doing absolutely the right thing by freezing migration from these third world countries. Let me just quote the late, great Rush Limbaugh for you. And as you can see, I was deeply inspired by Rush Limbaugh many years ago. I believe, just like Rush said many years ago, that coming to the United States of America should not be easy. This is the greatest country in all the world. And for the radical left that wants to demonize us and say we're not, then my question is, why will sometimes people get on rafts and come across shark-infested waters to come into our country if they hate our country? Why would they come here? It provides them the greatest liberty and freedom. Let me quote some of the things from Rush. That America is exceptional. We do believe in American exceptionalism. It's not because we're brighter, even though some of us are. It's not because we're better looking, even though some of us do have an upper hand. It's not because of any of those things. It's not because the Lord loves us more than everybody else. It's because we're the exception to the rule. We broke away from serfdom. We broke away from the idea that we have to believe in the religion of the state, and we don't have freedom of speech, and we don't have coexistent branches that can keep one another in checks and balances, and the right of fair and free trials, and all of these things. That was unheard of in the world. And so the United States of America is the exception to that. That's what makes us exceptional. And, you know, it should not be easy to come to the United States of America because we're the greatest country. And if you're going to come here, there ought to be strong vetting. You ought to be a net asset to our country. And you must fall in love with the principles of this great nation and be willing to assimilate to the principles of our nation. No other country is going to bring people into their country that hates their country. Why does the radical left think that's a good idea? It shows you how, I won't use the Trump word, they are, but you know, you have to question why in the world they would want people coming into our country that hates our country, unless they want that because they also hate our country as well. And that's exactly the case. They hate the United States of America. The left hates the United States. That's just simply the fact. They want to fundamentally transform America. Let me also quote to you Rush Limbaugh from many years ago. He talked about multiculturalism is just the idea of people bringing their broken ideologies right into our nation that they were fleeing from. This is the biggest issue I have with the left. Right now, they're not just demonizing President Trump, they're demonizing the military as well. Any military men and women that carry out the orders of the commander-in-chief, they are demonizing them. Also, Trump is cracking down on Venezuela. Now, there's some people saying he's going to get us in another war. Look, I'm going to tell you, Venezuela is not going to fight the United States of America. They're not going to fight us. They're not going to fight in a war on us. And as a matter of fact, Trump is having meetings with Xi Jinping, and he's having meetings with Vladimir Putin, and Russia and China is not even coming to their rescue. And so because they don't want to jeopardize some of the deals that are being made, this is why Trump was willing to strap on tariffs and then begin to bring them down, because it brought them to the negotiation table. It broke the back of China dependency. It also is breaking the very league between Venezuela, China, and Russia. It's intelligent. And for 4 decades, we couldn't break down the war on crime. It failed. Even Reagan's administration failed on the war on crime. Trump is doing something different. He's doing something different. And every time you go against what the radical left believes in, what the mainstream media believes in, they demonize you. Just go down to, what country is it? That was the most dangerous, and then now they're the safest. And anyways, they were demonizing the leader there because he went and he did a different path. He went a different way, and yet it was effective. They went from the most dangerous country to the safest country. And so you can say whatever you want, but President Trump is going against the grain of what all the presidents in the past had done. And I'm not going to turn on him because of that, because I'm going to wait it out and see if it works. And it seems like there might actually be a level of regime change like we have never seen in time past. In time past, the radical left would do regime change so they can get a socialist leader there. I'm not so sure Trump is going to allow that. And so I'm really interested to see what's happening. I mean, Trump is showing strength of the United States of America again. He's letting our geopolitical threats know that he also, while he hates war and he has been a president of peace, he's also a president that is willing to hammer down on people and let them know, look, you're not going to put our nation at threat. And I salute the president for that. So I'm going to wait and see what happens. I predict that Maduro's going to step down. I predict that he's going to step down. And you see that Trump is like shutting off the aviation travel. They can't fly into our country right now. He's got that completely shut down because he doesn't want them escaping, coming into U.S. or anywhere else, and then going right back, reformulating it and doing it again. And so I think Trump is being very, very strategic. I think people always look at him like he's just crazy. Now, I do like the fact that he is like that cowboy in the West that's got that little slight twitch in his eye. And you go, man, maybe he'll just shoot up the whole place. I kind of like that. I have no problem with that. And I'm glad that he's not telling the mainstream media exactly what he's going to do. It's an intelligent war strategy or intelligent foreign affairs strategy. And so I know that the right, the Republican conservatives are becoming like the pacifists of the 1960s and 1970s. But the truth of the matter is, if you want peace, sometimes you have to muscle up. If you want drugs that quit pouring into our country, you have to muscle up. That doesn't make us war hawks. That makes us care about the citizens of the United States of America. That's where the allegiance of the Republican Party, except for the milquetoast reprobates, the true MAGA and the conservatives, we have allegiance to and a loyalty to the United States of America. And I'm glad that the president is loyal to the U.S. citizens, not. And for all those that worry about his loyalty to everything else, these are the ones that are willing to bring anybody into our country without properly vetting them and then begin to try to be sympathetic to them over to U.S. citizens. They skip right past the grieving of National Guardsmen and they grieve and they worry about Islamophobia. The truth of the matter is, we don't need to be worried about Israel taking over the United States. We need to be worried about the Islamists trying to turn every one of our cities like Dearborn, Michigan, where you hear the prayers of Mecca more than you actually hear church bells. And then they're protected more by the radical left than Christians. And we were built on Christianity, but yet the radical left wants to undo all of that. They lie on one hand and they try to rewrite history to make it sound like we weren't built on Christianity. And then on the other hand, they try to say that it's white Christian nationalism. It's two lies just to try to tear down the American way and to try to tear out Christianity out of our country. They would rather side with Islamists over Christians. And that's the problem I have with the radical left. And that's why you should too. And so we should reject everything about the radical left, not vote for them in the midterms. I mean, just to show you how crazy they are, in Tennessee, they have this lady that hates Tennessee, talks about hating Tennessee, and wants to become, the governor or whatever of Tennessee. How crazy is that? She hates the Tennessee state, but yet she wants to lead it. That's the radical left for you. They want to lead the U.S. while they hate the U.S. That's perfectly the depiction of who they are, what they are, and why you should not vote for them in the midterms. Not at all. We can never let them return to power, because if they do, they're coming back with a vengeance, and they're absolutely insane. Not to use Trump's R word, but they're absolutely insane. And so we need to defeat them politically, ideologically, and most of all, spiritually. And so I am so grateful for those that tune in to the Revealed Report. If you like this content, please remember to smash the subscribe button, or you can gently tap it. I won't know the difference anyhow. Leave us a comment. Give us that thumbs up. Share us with somebody else. We greatly appreciate it. Tell others where you can find clarity in the world of confusion and noise. And if you haven't got it yet, you can order my book, The Final Flame. It is on Amazon, unless you would like to get a signed edition. It's a novel mystery thriller packed with truth, a lot of suspense, a lot of plot twists, good, clean romance for the ladies, a lot of suspense for the men. It will become a trilogy. There's going to be a second coming next year. And we have more books that are going to be releasing soon. We had a little setback, and we're wanting to make sure that we give the greatest quality we can to those that buy the books. And so We've had great reviews on the first book, people that really enjoyed it. So if you haven't got it, you can get your copy on Amazon. Unless you want a signed edition, you can email us at revealedpublications@gmail.com. and we can give you the details on how you get your signed edition. Well, thank you for joining me tonight for the Revealed Report. Let's defeat the radical left in the midterms and most certainly in 2028. I know the church will be standing tomorrow, for Jesus said, upon this rock, the gates of hell shall never prevail against it. But if the republic hasn't totally been burned down by tomorrow, I will see you then, America. God bless you. Have a great night.